Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I thought this morning would be a good morning to just maybe discuss some folklore and see what you think as an open panel. What do you think? How much of a paranormal um, activity in a place could be related to folklore or storytelling that has been passed down from generation to generation? So that's what I want to try and talk about here this morning. Because when I go out to do an investigation, like I said, I love to research, and I like to look at all of the information I can find. And when you start going back so far in history, then you're not really going to find a lot more documented before it starts to go into possibly folklore or storytelling that has went down generation to generation. So that's what I want to focus on this morning. And I'm not really sure where you're from. I was born and raised in West Virginia. And as you know, West Virginia is famous for many folklores. And one very notable and well-known folklore is the Mothman. So if you're going to go do an investigation, in my opinion, you want to be as informed as you can possibly be. And I don't want to go in bias just because someone says there's paranormal activity here, it's haunted here. I want to go back and do my research. So that's what I want to discuss today. And I have an open panel. And I'm going to go ahead and put my link in the chat. If you'd like to come up and join me, all you have to do is click on the link and come up and join me. So what I'm looking at is a lot of the places that I want to investigate. I will get back so far in history, and then there's nothing more in the historical society or places that I'm researching, trying to find the history of the property or the structure. And then once I get to that point, a lot of it will go into folklore and storytelling that was passed down generation to generation. And again, I mentioned Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and the Mothman. Now, is that a myth? Is it an omen? Was it real? Is it possibly real? So that's what I want to discuss today. And I'd like to have an open panel. I'd like to see what you think. I'd like your input. I can let you know what I have experienced whenever it comes to folklore or storytelling. And I was very, very impressed, actually, at the accuracy of the storytelling that was passed down years through the generation to generation. So I really do feel that a lot of the folklore or the storytelling could possibly be actual factual. Now, some of it may have changed a little bit as you went through the generations, but the very bottom line, that the very one fact that you're looking for could have been actually initiated from folklore or storytelling. So, as an investigator, I want to be completely biased, right? I don't want to go in, or unbiased, I'm sorry. I don't want to go in and say, just because they're stating that this is haunted doesn't mean that it's haunted. Or just because they're stating there's paranormal activity. I don't want to go in with that thought and that mindset that it is, because they're saying this has been passed down from generation to generation, or this is folklore that, has been, again, passed down. So I want to make sure that I go in with an open mind. I want to make sure I go in with research. And again, I'm from West Virginia. I was born and raised in West Virginia. And West Virginia has a lot of storytelling that went down through the years. And I can remember as a child that we would sit and listen to our grandparents or our relatives as they were telling stories about things that had been experienced in the area that could not be explained. And they wanted to make sure that they told us these stories through storytelling so that it could be passed on through the generations and that it would not be forgotten. Now, could it have been something that was paranormal? Absolutely. They had no explanation for it. Could it have been something that was so important to them that they did not want it lost in history? And West Virginia is very famous for flooding, and a lot of history has been lost due to flooding. And whenever you start going back through and doing your research, like I said, you'll get so far and then there's nothing else. And then it goes back to the folklore and the storytelling. So that's what I'm focusing on. And one very good example that I used this morning is the Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and the Mothman. Now, some believe that that is a curse, and we'll explain where they feel that curse came from. And some believe it was an omen, which is basically an omen would be a warning. Someone is getting a warning through some sign or some unexplained way. And others believe that it was just made up, that there was nothing to it. So whenever I'm going in to do my research, like I said, I'll go back as far as I can. I want to look at the history of the area. And how do I do that? I'll start with little things like, here's an example. Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Now this is the history. Some history on Point Pleasant. It's very well put together. And I like going through and finding things like this. I'll put this link, if I can, in my description. I'm just learning how to do all of this. But I really enjoy going through and trying to get as much research as I can. Now, this says Jason Bolt on behalf of the Mason County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And this is Images of America and Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I enjoy going through and looking at what all happened, what all occurred in that area. From the time that it was being developed, from the time it was discovered, what was all of the events that occurred in this area? Is there events that occurred in this area that could help explain possibly some of the myths, some of the folklore? And when it comes to omens and it comes to believing, is there some way that you are sent some kind of a warning. Now, my family, because they are from West Virginia, and through the folklore and through the storytelling, I have heard of many times in throughout the generations where they had what they called an omen. And I asked my mother one time, "What is an omen?" And she said an omen would be like a warning, something that would be letting you know that there's danger approaching, something that could letting you know to be prepared, that there's a disaster coming. And they truly, honestly believe in these omens. And then the story that they would tell as they went through it, and then what had occurred, it really made me stop and think and question, is it possible that there's some way that we are getting warnings, an omen, that we are not, that we're not heeding to, or that we've just overlooked it, or didn't notice that there was these signs that they called signs, and they called them omens. So the Mothman, we're going to talk about Point Pleasant for a second. The Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, happened right before a major disaster. And if you're familiar with Point Pleasant, it was a terrible, terrible disaster. And this creature was seen by multiple people going up to the days prior to the disaster in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And that disaster happened on October. Let's see, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. It was going into Christmas in 1967. And the Silver Bridge fell in 1967, claiming 46 lives. And it was so sad because it was right around Christmas time, and the photos that they had when they were searching for the missing, there was Christmas gifts that had been wrapped and that people were going to deliver in the water. And that was so sad to this doing this research, to me, was very sad. It was heartbreaking. Anytime that there is a disaster in our history, they want to note that as well as they can. They want to get as many of the facts correct as they can, because they don't want that point in history to be forgotten, and the impact that it made on the community, on the lives of the ones that were lost. And so I have to question, and because I was raised with folklore and with storytelling, a part of me has to believe that was their way of passing history, because maybe they were not able to read and write as well as they should have, or they had things that they needed to do, because back years ago, there was, when you had a farm or a homestead, you had so much work to do that there was not always time for schooling. So when the children got to a certain grade in school, they felt that, the parents felt that was enough education and schooling that they were needed at home on the homestead. And because of that, I feel personally that they were limited in their abilities to um, write down everything and to be able to pass that on as a historical document. And that's what we look at today. We look at historical documents when we go in to do research. You know, whenever we go to try to decide, is this actual history or is this folklore? Is this storytelling? So that's why I feel that storytelling, in my opinion, is very important. And that's why I feel that possibly folklore, in my opinion, is very important, because maybe that was the only way that they could pass it down as something that happened, an event that happened, and that they wanted that passed down through the generations so that particular event could not be forgotten. And I do believe that if you go back and you look at the folklore and you look at the storytelling, and then you go into the history, you're always going to find something from that folklore, something from that storytelling has been passed down. And then they will find, through their research, they will find facts if they research far enough. So, whenever I'm going in to do an investigation, I cannot discredit folklore. I cannot discredit storytelling. Now, can I base my entire investigation on folklore or storytelling? Absolutely not. But I cannot discredit it, not in my opinion. Now, you as an investigator may feel differently. And if you look back, even at the Native Americans, they passed all their history down through storytelling and through paintings. You know, things that they were able to do to pass it down through generation through generation through generation. So I have to be very open minded when it comes to how I collect my data, my information, when I'm doing my research prior to an investigation. Then I will go in and do my actual investigation. So then I can take everything that I've gathered through my research, everything I've gathered during my investigation, and that gives me, in my opinion, a better outlook on, and a very, shall I say, informed opinion about any paranormal activity that may possibly be going on at this location. So that's basically what I'm here to talk about this morning. And I want to get your input. I want to know, what do you think? Do you have any folklore in your family that has been passed down through the generations? Do you have any storytelling that has been passed down through the generations? And then as you got older or wanted to do more research, have you actually found that your family was not the only one that passed down this folklore, or did not pass this down through storytelling from generation to generation? So that's what I'm focusing on. I've got me a nice warm cup of coffee, It's still snowing here, and I'm in my nice warm sweats this morning, staying warm. And I thought I would have some coffee and maybe we could come on and have a discussion. It's an open panel. If you want to come up and join me and talk about it, if you have had any experiences through folklore or storytelling and it relates to the paranormal, you're more than welcome to come up and join me. I do ask that you be respectful. We do not allow any hate in my channel. I basically started this channel so that we could all learn together. I could give you some of the information that I've gathered, why I have focused on the paranormal, um, what my research, through my resources and all the research and all the equipment that I have and all of the tests and experiments that I have went through and tried and then logged all of my evidence. So hopefully I can pass this on, which would basically maybe be another way of doing storytelling, because I'm telling you what I have experienced and I'm passing it on to you. So, in a way, this is me doing storytelling to the next person. And hopefully, this will be passed down from my daughter to my grandchildren and into my great grandchildren. This is what my mother did. This is what and then the next generation, this is what your grandmother did. This is what your great grandmother did. So to me, it all works in a very good way of making sure that you do pass on something that you do not want lost through the generations. And this is an adult channel, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off. Well, no, I'm not even going to turn my camera off this morning. I'm just going to have a cigarette this morning. And we're going to talk. And we're going to have some coffee. And like I said, I'm from West Virginia. And West Virginia has a lot of folklore. It has a lot of storytelling. It has, very famously, as I mentioned, the Mothman, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And many cryptids. Is it a cryptid? Bigfoot. Let's discuss Bigfoot. Even West Virginia and different places in West Virginia have reports of sightings of Bigfoot. Is Bigfoot a cryptid? Was Mothman a cryptid? Are these things real? Or are they an omen, something that's coming as a warning that maybe something bad is about to happen? There could be a disaster ready to occur. And should we ignore these warnings? Are they a warning? Are they an omen? Or are they just something that someone made up? Now, I feel personally that it should be researched. Nothing really should be just thrown out as it's fake, you know. Now, are there some things maybe that have been added down through the years? Are there maybe some people that are attention seekers that have made things up for attention? That's very possible. But I cannot just say, this is not happening. This never happened. Maybe it didn't happen to me. Maybe it didn't happen to you. But can you for 100% say that this never truly happened? That this was all done for attention, a campfire story, a folklore. So that's basically what I'm talking about. Now, have I ever seen a Bigfoot? No. Have I ever seen the Mothman? No. Did I ever go looking for a Bigfoot? No. Did I ever go looking for the Mothman? No. Scientists are still trying to prove if there is a Bigfoot. They have been researching evidence that's been brought in. And is it legal if you see a Bigfoot to capture the Bigfoot? Is it legal if you see a Bigfoot and you're in the woods to bring harm to that Bigfoot? Are they protected? Are they a species that somehow did survive? And as we grew, it pushed them farther and farther into the wooded areas, into the mountains. And unless you are in that area, you're not going to see one. Is it possible? It could be. Can I say that I believe 100% that there is no such thing as a Bigfoot? I cannot say that because I have not proven to myself 100% that there's not a Bigfoot. In my lifetime, would I go out and try to find a Bigfoot? I don't know. Number one, I don't think I could do the terrain. And number two, if it is real, would I be taking a chance of not only harming the cryptid or creature, but could I be taking a chance of harming myself? Is it something that we are not supposed to be capturing? Is it something we're not supposed to be harming? In my opinion, if it's out there, I would leave it alone. Unless it came to you and there was a reason it came to you, maybe that would be a different story. But would I actually intentionally go out wanting to look for a Bigfoot? No, I don't know that I would. I would be afraid for myself. Would I get harmed? Would anyone with me, if I had people with me, would they get harmed? If this creature is real, this cryptid is real, would I be bringing harm to that creature or cryptid by filming it or by exposing the territory where I've seen it at? Is it a myth or is it real? You know, I have to be open-minded. Does that mean I believe 100% that there's Bigfoot? It's real? I don't know. I've never been able to prove it to myself. Have I done research? Absolutely. I want to see, what does science say? Is it possible? And science is still trying to prove whether or not there is a Bigfoot. And again, it could be a myth, or is it an omen? Is it some type of omen, a warning that will only appear like the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia? There was a disaster getting ready to happen, and the Mothman supposedly came as an omen, a warning, and apparently set on the bridge that collapsed and many people lost their lives when that bridge collapsed. So, is there cryptids that do come to somebody, let people see them? Is it a warning? Is it, or is it just chance? I don't know. But until I can 100% say that I do not, that I've done all my research and I cannot, or I can prove 100% that they do not exist, I'm not going to do that. That's not my job to do that. It's my job as an investigator to inform myself through research, through storytelling, through folklore, put it all together. And then if I go in and I do my own investigation, use everything that I collect through my investigation. And then all I can do is give an informed, because then I've informed myself as much as possible through the history, through the folklore, through storytelling, through my investigation, through everything that I have logged and recorded. I can give my informed opinion. This is what I think. Does that mean that it's 100% correct? Absolutely not. Now, I did put my link in the chat. If you want to come up and join me, you're more than welcome to click on the link and come up and join me. And we're just basically talking about myths and folklore in the paranormal. Do they have anything to do with the paranormal? Is that where a lot of the paranormal stories come from? Was it something that was passed down from generation to generation through folklore or storytelling? Or is it something that someone is experiencing and they log everything down and they make sure that someone knows this is what happened? And they ask for help. Can you come in? Can you investigate? I need to know what is going on. Is this paranormal? And then you can put all of this together. And then maybe you can make a decision, an informed opinion. Do you believe that folklore is connected to the paranormal activity or the haunting, as some people call it? It's very possible. In my opinion, it's very possible. And why am I saying that? Because I'm saying this with an informed opinion. Like I stated, I was born and raised in West Virginia. And in West Virginia, we had a lot of folklore and a lot of storytellers. And a lot of history was passed down from generation to generation through folklore and storytelling. So that's what I'm discussing this morning. Why I feel this way. Why this is my informed opinion. And I would like to get other people's comments. Have you experienced folklore in your lifetime, or something was passed down to you? Or have you experienced folklore when you're going in to do an investigation and you're doing your research and your history, and it goes back so far, and then the only thing that you can find is folklore or storytelling? Have you experienced that when you're getting ready to go in and do an investigation, when you're preparing for your investigation? With me, I do my research first. And again, this is an adult channel, so I'm having a cigarette this morning and having some coffee, sitting around in my relaxing comfies, staying warm in this winter storm. So that's what I'm discussing this morning, having a nice warm cup of coffee. I'm not baking this morning. I think I got everything done that I wanted to get baked and put away in the freezer. I still have my one loaf of bread that I did yesterday on my channel, on my live stream. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I made cinnamon raisin bread in the bread maker. And I had one loaf already prepared so you could see the finished product. And then I went through the bread making process in the bread maker. So that bread loaf is now wrapped in plastic. I finished it yesterday. And I'm going to go ahead and slice that today on my bread slicer that I showed you yesterday in the live stream. And then I'm going to put that in the freezer. And we do have this major winter storm coming yesterday in our local area. Our roads were level 3 condition. They didn't want anybody out traveling. So I went over to help my little neighbor lady. Her aides, she's not able to help herself. And she has aides that come in the morning until early afternoon. And then she has aides that come in the evening. And because of the bad weather, they were not able to get to her. And she's not able to get up and take care of herself. And I just live right across from her. So it was a pleasure for me to be able to step in and to help. That way I knew that these ladies were not out on bad roads taking chances on bad roads to be able to get to my neighbor lady. They were home, they were warm, and they were with their family. And I was just right across from her, and I made sure that all of her needs were met. I fixed her 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all home-cooked meals. And it was just the smile on her face and her gratitude. That is such a reward, such a reward to be able to help somebody. So now the roads are cleared up a little bit. Her aides did make it yesterday afternoon. And now we have more snow coming in. I'm not sure if they'll be here today or not. But I do know I'm not going to have to be rushed this morning. I won't have to go over this morning and help her. And so that gives me a little more time to get rested. I feel so much better this morning. I had a early night that I went to bed. I was so tired yesterday. And then, of course, I have the new puppy. He's 7 months old, and we are POTTY training. And it's been a while since I've had a puppy. My Maltese was 13, and he passed away in June. And so this is all new. And we're learning together. So I said we are in training together. We're training each other. And he is an absolutely amazing pup. I'm so glad that we decided to open our home to a new puppy. So I was showing some of the research that I did and some of the actual folklore. And with me being from West Virginia, I'm sure if you've been doing any folklore or any cryptids, you've heard of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And I always go when I'm doing my research. I try to find as much as I can. This is very informative. And we have a local news stand where you can go in, and they not only just have newspapers, but they have like books on the areas, different areas, and the history of the areas, and some of the folklores, and some of the storytelling. So that's just one of the books. And of course, I get multiple books. So if I was going to go to, say, here's another one that's very famous, West Virginia Penitentiary. And these are all put out to try and share information folklore, history. And here is the Central Ohio's Historic Prisons. And these are just so informative. They're so nice. They're put together very well. These are different cultures that came to the area and what they brought with them. And I found in a lot of my history research, when it comes to folklore or storytelling, whenever our country is developing, there's so many cultures that come together, and each culture may have a different belief. They may have different storytellings, folklore, and do they bring some of that with them? And I've found in my history, absolutely, that absolutely is brought into the history. Um, like my family, if I go back to my four, what is my four major genetic makeups? It would be German, Dutch, English, and Native American. So each one of those cultures would feed into my genetic makeup. And how many folklores were turned down or passed down generation to generation through those different cultures that combined. So that's the way I research. I'm like a sponge. I need to absorb as much as I can. I need to keep an open mind, and I need to try and come up with an informed opinion. Here's some more on the areas that is near me. We had the steamboats. We have, well, I'm right on the Ohio River, so you had the steamboats. And the Ohio River was the major traffic area for your steamboats and your travel. And so whenever I want to look at any area, I want to know what all influenced that area. What what was their economy? What was their cultures? What was their reason for establishing in that area? Was it a good trade route? Was it minerals? Was it gold? Was it silver? Was it mining coal? Was it timber? Something brought people to that area. And what brought them there? Why did they actually settle there? Why did this community grow? And if the community has failed and is no longer there and has become what we know as a ghost town, why? Why did it fail? Why did it become a ghost town? And then again, here's another one, and this will affect many states. Your Underground Railroad. And of course, in my area, the Underground Railroad was a very big part of it. So I like to look at what all has impacted this area. What events, what tragedies, what growth, um, what influenced them. And then you get into the hauntings. So, in order to do, say, this particular area, I'm going to have to look at the county, the whole county, not just this area, not just is this particular place haunted, but is the whole county that, what all happened in these areas? Did it influence something now that's happening in this area? It may not have just been this area. Whenever you have a rural area, you have a lot of the community that will come to that area. They will come there for supplies. They would come there for trade, for travel. So, with them coming to that area from their royal homestead, could something have influenced now what they're calling a paranormal event or activity or a haunting? Could someone have came from a rural area in the community, in the county, to visit, and unfortunately there was some type of tragedy, something happened to someone? Could that be influencing it? And then their family would start a folklore or storytelling. This is what happened. This particular person went to this town, and while this particular person was in this town, something tragic happened, you know. So I have to really be like an open book, like a sponge. I need to absorb as much as I can absorb. I need to learn as much as I can learn. Learn about the community, learn about the cultures, because many of your cultures is going to explain, in my opinion, where your folklore comes from, where your storytelling comes from. And it may not be just one particular folklore, but it can be multiple folklores in an area. Hi, I see someone's coming up, so I'm going to add you to the stage.
Hey, nigger, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
So you don't mind the word? That's the first step.
I don't mind the what? The work?
Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I said, hey, nigger.
Oh, no, I don't mind the word. And you know why I don't mind the word? Because it depends on how you're using it.
Because you have a book in your hand and you're intelligent. Trust me,
Ex-
I do this to everybody. This is a weeder
Exactly.
question.
Exactly. If you're going to be using it to harm somebody, then yes, I have a problem with that. But otherwise, no, you educate yourself. And if you educate yourself, you're not offended.
Correct? Hey, finally. Now, why cannot other people understand what I'm saying? I'm only 31 and I'm a real person, you know.
Hey,
Uh, Why am I having such fucking trouble when I go to other people's panel? They want to take offense. So I
well,
looked up the most offensive word in the English language and I use it on them because if they're offended, they cannot learn.
well, I'll tell you why. A lot of it is because of other people, and they don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So instead of trying to educate, they are trying to protect themselves. I don't want to approach that. I'm going to protect myself. I don't want to approach that. It's better to educate than to be worried about offending me. You're not going to offend me, but if you can educate me on how to properly use language and explain why it can be harmful, then that's what's educational. So I'm not afraid to accept those challenges and learn. And that's what we need to do. We need to learn and educate.
I'm a 31-year-old male. I recently come into the knowledge of, well, I started studying the occult. And now that I have the occulted knowledge, now nobody understands me. And when I talk to them, they don't understand me when I say racism isn't real. It's just not. And people, the very language that we're using needs to be reset.
It
Like
does. It really needs to be reset.
I mean, you look pretty white, but honestly, the only white people are albinos, and the only people that are black are melanistic.
Now, you may not have caught my earlier. I had everyone goes back. I went to college, so yeah, I'm a little educated. I do have a BA, and I loved going to a liberal arts college because you learn so much more. And when you go back to genealogy, you have four major. Mine is German, Dutch, English, and Native American. So, what how can you go back to the point where something is not one or the other? You're going cultures mixed over generations and generations and generations. So does that mean just because I look white that I'm white?
No, the only people that's actually white, the government uses dichotomy to divide and conquer. The only
Exactly.
people that's white is albino people, and the only people that's black is melanistic. They're called melanistic, like a melanistic animal.
Exactly.
Like instead of a red fox, the melanistic animal would be mostly black, deep black. The blackest of blacks is melanistic, and it's a pigment condition.
Exactly. It's pigmentation.
But the ones that are creating the dichotomy is the ones that's printing these licenses. They ask me, they say I'm white, that I'm a male, which doesn't mean anything because masculinity and femininity is not the same as just being a biological male or female.
Yes.
Uh, and people express themselves like a male can express themselves feminine and a woman can express themselves masculine. So that's another way to divide people. And they know this, the government knows this. And
And how do you think that, in my opinion, how do you think that they keep people in certain little categories? They use these things, in my opinion, to put you in your own little place so you don't want to step out of your place. And how can you learn and grow if you feel that you can't step out of this boundary? Because you've been put in this particular boundary. I can't be in that one boundary. I have Native American. I want to go back and see, what did that mean? Native American, what does it mean? What is their culture? Same thing with the German, same thing with the Dutch and the English. So, if I'm just put in you are white, you're not any of these others, how can you learn?
well, the dichotomy is used by, okay, so the ones telling me I'm white is Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, Jordan Peterson, and they constantly use this. They say white people are under attack by the Democrats. And they never, these supposed intellectuals, these social engineers that have all the money to influence people, they keep the dichotomy going.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think, now this is just, I'm asking your opinion. Do you think that without all of the diversity that we have would have become the nation that we've become?
They've ruined. They created. They took people that were considered black, and so I've been on panels. I don't know if this answers your question or not, but I've been on panels to where I say, would you assault me over that word? Would you go to jail? Because it's not illegal for me to say it. Would you assault me? And most of the people that identify as black say, yes, I would assault you over it. And I
Mm.
said, you are completely mind controlled. There is no word that somebody could say to me to make me go to jail.
Well,
And
that's
then they wonder why, oh, why is black people in jail? Because they gave you a trigger word. It literally rhymes with the word trigger. How much more obvious can you be?
well, I
And
understand.
then,
I do understand that there's a lot of anger, a lot of hurt because of the things that's happened over our history, as a nation. But we have to learn from our mistakes so we do not repeat those mistakes. You know what I mean? You cannot go back and change it. There's no way we can go back and say, we're going to go back and change that. We can't. It happened. It's part of our history. Does that mean that we cannot improve it? That we cannot learn from it? So we never make that mistake again. We have to learn. We have to grow. We can't stay in that stalemate. It don't work. It does not work.
are you talking about chattel slavery or chattel, whatever you pronounce it?
I'm talking about, okay, you look at our nation. How did our nation start? How did we grow? What mistakes did we make? Okay, I know that you're talking about pigmentation. Look at your Native Americans. What happened to the Native Americans in the United States, in our nation? So it wasn't just one group. Multiple groups have suffered because of somebody else saying this is the way it should be, and then other people following that example, and then
Yeah,
that
I
became part
call it an
of history.
archetypal. It's called an archetypal because what they do is, okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with tarot. This is the esoteric knowledge. So they call it the minor arcana. It's a deck of playing cards, but the difference is there's 22
Yes.
other cards with it.
Well, and you might go back and check out a few of my channels. In order for me to understand everything, like I'm paranormal. My channel is paranormal. Why do I call it real paranormal investigating? It's because of what has happened to me, myself, in my life. And it took me years to understand and accept and what I experienced. And now 42 years later, I started 40 years ago, or 2 years ago. So 40 years later, I finally started a channel to hopefully leave something for someone to learn from. To, like, if they are going through the same experience, not to be afraid to ask for help, not to
I,
be
I,
afraid
I
to
am new
walk
here and
out.
I just popped in, but I will check it. So, paranormal investigation. I remember my wife used to do that a little bit.
Well, in order for me to understand the paranormal, I have to go in open minded, and that's what I was discussing today. A lot of your investigations, you're going to have folklore and you're going to have storytelling. Just like this would basically go in line with what you're saying. Storytelling passed down through generations has gotten to where you're saying, does that offend you? You know, if I say this, was that not somehow passed down through generation, through storytelling and
Mimetic.
history?
You're
And
describing what Jordan Peterson had described as a mimetic.
yes. So I have some tarot decks. I did go out and order some tarot cards because how can I look at the paranormal without having a completely open book? I won't stay in this little box and say, well, you need to just look at this. If I cannot educate myself, I cannot make an informed opinion. So if I have somebody saying that they are gifted and they're using tarot cards, I need to get a deck of tarot cards. I need to see what is it. Not only that, research what is tarot. And I did a thing on the tarot on one of my lives here a while back. The history of tarot. Where did it come from? So does that feed into the paranormal? Look at YouTube. Look at the tarot, the psychics, all of these things. Then does all of that end up eventually feeding into the paranormal? What is the paranormal? What is the definition of paranormal? If it
Well, I would
cannot
like to
be
ask you a question.
if it
You
cannot be
are,
scientifically explained, then what is it? It is something that is not explainable, making it paranormal through their testing, through their experiments.
how do you test it?
Multiple ways. Multiple ways. You never use just one test. If you're going to go in and test something, you're not going to use just one test. So what I do is if I have someone call me and say, for instance, there's something going on in my home and I feel it could possibly be paranormal. Before I'm going to just jump in my vehicle, put my equipment in my vehicle, I want to be prepared if someone does call me and ask for help. So because of my experiences, I wanted to do research on what is happening to me. Is it real? Could your senses be affected? Could, it be something psychological? Have you, went to all of these different things? You can't just say it's paranormal. Plain and simple. All the equipment that I have, I'm not going to use the spirit box to be speaking to ghosts. I'm just not going to do it. Why? If you go back and look at my channel, it's an AM, FM radio. Whoops, you dropped off. So it depends on what you're looking for. I'm looking for evidence. And then all of the equipment that I have, I want to make sure that it's legitimate equipment. I want to make sure that it is not something that is going to be failing multiple times if I'm in an experiment, doing an experiment, and I try all this equipment out prior. Sorry, I lost signal. I'll be back soon. So my husband, here's an example. My husband is a carpenter and he does anything construction. He owned his own business for 30 plus years. He became a certified electrician, certified plumber, heavy equipment. So he built homes from the ground up. So when I go out to do an investigation, if I have equipment, he can tell me if this equipment that I have is going to react to, say, wiring within a wall. You can have a ceiling fan above you turned off. Does that mean that that's not going to set off my K2 meter? It absolutely will. Even if the ceiling fan is turned off, there's still a magnetic field. So my husband has that experience. And so he can tell me this equipment, yes, it is working like it should be. It is, if we're in a place and there is absolutely no power, and I have pieces of equipment that he has tried, that he has used even on the job. The other day we had a gentleman call and he knew my husband and he was getting ready to have new hot water tanks put in. And the electrician was having a problem because the EMF readings were high. And he did not have a piece of equipment that himself that he had purchased so that he could find what is the safe EMF level. So he contacted my husband to see if he by chance had something because he knew he had done was an electrician for years. And my husband came in and said, hey, can I borrow your K2 meter and go across town to see what the EMF readings are for this gentleman who's installing new hot water tanks. So the pieces of equipment that I have, my husband can take out to a job site and test them And he knows that this piece of equipment is accurate. And by him taking nothing more than my K2 meter, going across town, he was able to let the gentleman know, the electrician know, that this is, that he would get it to the point where, yes, okay, now this is a safe EMF reading. Why do you want a safe EMF reading? So, see, you can't just say this piece of equipment is working. What is EMF? If your EMF readings are too high, why is that dangerous? What can it cause? So you have to go into a further research. A lot of people think they have a paranormal activity happening. And if you use the right equipment, you may be able to detect that EMF reading is too high. And when the EMF reading is too high, it is going to cause them to be restless. It's going to cause them to have lack of sleep. And then through them having lack of sleep, a lot of times they begin to not eat right. Their whole routine will get completely out of whack. And eventually it will get to the point where they're so exhausted that they may even begin to see things that are not there or hear things that are not there. And it's not that they are crazy. It's not that they were not stable and know that, I'm a stable person. Something is not right. They are correct. Something is not right. You have an EMF reading in your home that is too high, and it will cause effects on the human body. So you have to really inform yourself if you're going to go out and do an investigation. So that's what I look at and how I look at it. So you're asking, how do I investigate? That's how I investigate. Just because I'm going in with a piece of equipment and it's going off, I cannot say, this is haunted, this is a ghost, this is a spirit, Now, do I think, and have I been able to prove that there could be spirits, and is the spirit an energy, and could it be nothing more than energy that would affect your equipment? In many tests and in many investigations, my husband and I have found that we have no logical explanation. There is no power whatsoever in the structure. So then my husband goes farther than that. Just because there's no power in the structure, he'll go outside. He'll look for overhead power lines. Is there any overhead power lines that could be carrying a high voltage that could be causing my equipment to go bad? We want to see the history of the land. What was there another structure maybe that was built before this structure? Was it built on a ley line? Everyone knows ley lines carry energy. So you can't just say, okay, there's no power in this building. We know there's no power in this building. I've got 3 pieces of equipment and they're all reacting. So yes, it's haunted. You can't do that unless you go completely outside that box. You got to get outside that box. You can't stay in that little box. You have to be able to get as much evidence that you can using equipment that has been tried by yourself, tried by professionals. Like I said, my husband was a certified electrician. He uses meters all the time. If I was working with him and we were installing electric and we had ran our wires and everything, I would be downstairs and he would have something plugged in. I'm looking for it to beep, and we're on the phone, and he would maybe be at the at the breaker box, And that way I'm looking and he's saying, is, do you have power there? Do you not have power there? So that way he knew he was not going to get electrocuted. So he knows how this equipment works. So I'm using someone who's been educated and trained in electricity. Same thing with plumbing. Many times it could be something as simple as plumbing that could be causing what someone feels is a paranormal activity in their home. They're hearing these clunks or bangs or something. And a few times my husband has said, wait a minute, go upstairs and flush that commode. And we would put the camera on a certain area where he wanted it. And sure enough, that rattle, that bang, whatever, it was nothing more than the plumbing, but it was so far away that they were not connecting the two. So that's going to help someone to understand that this maybe is not even a haunting. Maybe it's nothing paranormal. But how can you do that if you cannot do a good investigation, a thorough investigation? And I do that by educating myself, and again, like I said, my husband is a skeptic. And I go in not to prove that it is haunted. I go in to prove that it is not haunted, that it is not paranormal. I don't go in with the mindset this place is haunted. I want to go get evidence and put it on a channel and grow a channel and monetize my channel. That's not what I'm about. I am here to explain that, yes, there is real paranormal. There are real hauntings. But does that mean that every single bump that people hear or something they can't explain is paranormal? No, it doesn't mean that. Can I help to leave education that I have went through myself, my research, all of my facts, all of my evidence, and maybe help someone else once I'm gone to continue on to say, yes, maybe there is something out there. Can we explain it? We may be able to explain 99% of it, and the 1% we cannot. Does that mean that it's paranormal? No. Does that mean that it's haunted? No. But does that 1% mean I cannot 100% with my equipment, with my research, explain what is happening? That's what I'm about. That's what this channel is about. I'm sharing something that's very personal to me. I did not go looking for the paranormal. I didn't want the paranormal. But unfortunately, the paranormal found me. And for years, it was a nightmare. And it's still a nightmare. It's something I have to live with every single day. So, can I help somebody maybe that is going through the same thing that I'm going through? Very possible. But does that mean that I know everything? Absolutely not. Every day I'm learning. You've seen the books I hold up. If I had a home, a big home, I would have such a library because I am a book person. I like to get the book. I like to feel the book. I like the smell of the book. And I love, especially in the winter, I'm cooking, I'm baking, and I'm reading. I have my little fireplace on, I have my candle lit, and I'm reading. I'm like a sponge. I want to absorb as much information as I can. And then hopefully use that, everything that I've been reading, everything I've been researching, use that to make my investigations a more accurate investigation so that it can be presented with factual evidence that I have found. I use audio, video, the spirit boxes are nothing more than an AM FM radio. And no matter how fast you sweep it, reverse or forward, you're going to have radio feedback. Am I going to be using phone apps, ghost hunting phone apps? Everything that I'm talking about, in order for me to understand it, I purchased it. I experimented with it. Now, do I believe that a spirit box is a spirit coming through and talking to you? No, I don't. Do I believe that these phone apps, the spirits coming through and talking to you? No. Both of these pieces of equipment, your apps, phone apps, and your spirit box, were created for entertainment purposes only. And it really upsets me. It breaks my heart to see people using spirit boxes and phone apps, say in a missing persons case or in a homicide case, and they are both either or an active open investigation. These families are holding out hope. And in my opinion, if you're coming on there with a spirit box and you're saying that the loved one that is either missing or could be harmed in some way, and you're stating this on an open platform and they're coming on and saying it, I feel that you could be taking what little bit of hope that they have away. I personally don't want to do that. So yes, I purchased the tarot cards. I want to know, what is tarot? Where did it come from? How did it develop? How is it being used? And then I wanted to go on to different uh, apps and see people using tarot cards. How are they using them? Or is what they are stating, is that their opinion? Or is it with the guidebook? Because I have a tarot card deck and this is what my guidebook says. And then I'm looking at what cards they have and comparing. So, in order for me to make any type of opinion, I need to inform myself, I need to research it. So, yes, I have tarot cards. Not only the regular tarot cards, I have the oracle cards. And you'll see a lot of people using the different oracle cards. Those are basically, you you pull a card out and you interpret it as your own opinion, whatever you think. Does that mean that what you're saying is factual? Absolutely not. Can that be harmful? It can be very harmful, in my opinion. I know because I personally had a daughter that went missing the week going into Thanksgiving. And then prior to that, I had a granddaughter years ago, went missing when she was a teenager. So I have been in that position. I know what it feels like. I understand. I understand their fear, their hopelessness, they the shock that they're going through, the exhaustion, mentally, physically, emotionally. I understand that. And you, every minute of every day, you're holding out hope. And I'm very grateful that law enforcement found and brought home both my granddaughter years ago and my daughter just recently. I don't feel that I was lucky. I feel I was blessed because they are still part of my life. But there are many people out there that their loved one is still missing. I don't want to come on and do something or say something that is going to be harmful or hurtful or take away that one little bit of hope that they're hanging on to. So that's why I'm researching in every way that I research. So, Miss we'll get back to the myths and to the storytelling. In my opinion, all of that maybe does, though, some kind of a part into hauntings or paranormal. That's my opinion. If you'll excuse me, I will be right back. I'm going to take a little POTT break. I don't want to say it out loud because of the puppy. Okay, sorry about that. I apologize. When nature calls, you must go, and especially when you get older like me. But anyway, I wanted to come on here and talk about folklore, about myths, and basically what I've experienced whenever it comes to doing an investigation. Um, have I found that folklore or storytelling can fall into a category where people question, you know, is my home haunted or is this structure haunted? And a lot of times, yes, I will run into that. Then can I go back through and show them what I have researched, the information I've gathered? Can I bring it in and explain to them that I have found this in folklore or storytelling, but whenever I'm going back through history, I'm not finding it in history, and I've went back to this point. And at that point, there is no more history for me to go back to. But where that history stops, I'm finding storytelling and folklore. So does that mean that this event that you're stating could be happening in your home? Does that mean it didn't happen? I'm not saying that that is not happening. I can tell you what I have researched and what I've found. And then if I come in and do an investigation, this is all of my evidence and everything I've gathered. So I hope that is helpful. But this is all the farther that I can take this investigation. And then if I feel that they need further help, I will refer them to their clergy, their church, to someone who could maybe go beyond my scope. I don't want to be beyond my scope. This is all I can do. I hope this has helped. Here's all the information I have, the history, the folklore, the storytelling, and all of my evidence, my audio, my video, and all of my equipment evidence. And I hope this will help you to further find the answers that you're looking for. And I feel that's the way I want my investigations to be conducted. Other people may not feel that way, but that's the way I want my investigations to be conducted. Because many of them are asking for help, asking for answers, looking for answers. And that's what happened to me. I was looking for answers. You know, is this real? Is this really happening? So I went through not only educating myself. But I took myself through to my doctor, refer me to a psychiatrist. You know, did my brain take an extensive period of being deprived of oxygen, that there's some type of damage that did not have prior to what happened to me? So I have to eliminate everything. And I had to do that with myself. I had to go through different testing, different experiments to get answers. No, this is, all brain activity is fine. All, you're not depressed, you're not anxious, you're not, all these different things. So even a chemistry change in your body can cause some restlessness, anxiety, depression. And with those comes you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right. And all of that can actually get to the point where you maybe think that you're seeing things or think that you're hearing things. But that does not mean that it's not happening. It could be happening to you, but there's a scientific reason. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to the person that needs the help, that has been asking for help. And that's what I'm hoping I can share with other people on my channel. So I've been on here now for almost an hour and a half. I'm going to go ahead and hop off today. I've got some things to take care of. But I just wanted to come on and see what your opinion is, to see if you've experienced in your research that some of the things that people are calling paranormal, do they have any connection to myth, to storytelling? And have you experienced this when you're doing your research and gathering all of the history? Have you ran into the same problem? And then if you do, are you just staying open-minded and saying, here's the folklore and the storytelling and then the history, but yet it's all still pointing in the same direction? Does that mean you throw away the folklore and the myths, that that's nothing to pay attention to? I cannot do that. Personally, myself, I cannot do that. Number one, it's because, like I stated, I was born and raised in West Virginia. There's a lot of folklore in West Virginia, a lot of storytelling in West Virginia, and a lot of the history would have been lost, in my opinion, if it had not been for the folklore and for the storytelling. So that played a big part in the history and preserving history that may have been lost and never recovered. So that's my opinion. I'd like to hear what you think. Please comment. Please be kind. I'm new at sharing all this and I'm trying to learn every day. Every day I'm learning, I'm researching, I'm experimenting, and I'm hoping that I can leave something, some type of a record that can be passed on to someone else that may be going through the same thing I was, that was looking for answers. And that's basically why I'm here. So, again, give me your opinions. If you have any questions, I'll, send me a question. I'll try to answer it. But we are not a hate channel. We are here to educate, if we can educate, and to be educated. It works both ways. There's things that I do not know. There's things that I would love to learn, to research. And again, I'm always learning. I'm always researching. I'm I'm very open minded, but I want to base everything I'm finding on my facts, on my evidence, and then also with the research that I've done, the history research, you know, because I really feel you have to include all things in order to have, in my opinion, a good investigation. It's not always just about finding the little white ghost floating around the room, because there may not be no little white ghost floating around the room. And then you never know when there may be something there. It is real. The paranormal is real. And this is my opinion, if you do not understand the paranormal, if you have not researched the paranormal, please be careful. There are doors that you can open. You can do it so innocently. And once those doors are opened, you cannot close them. So always, always approach the paranormal with caution. If you have someone reaching out to you for help, please do your research and use your evidence. And I hope that you have some really good equipment, that you've done really good research, and pass that information on to the person that has asked you for help. Maybe you can help them eventually find answers to the questions that they need. So until next time, I want to hop off of here. I'm going to go have me another cigarette and some coffee. And I'm going to enjoy a book. I'm going to do some research. Till next time, I'll see you. Have a wonderful day. And remember, not everything is paranormal. Not everything is haunted. It's not haunted. It may not be a haunting. But then again, remember, there are things that we cannot explain. So is the paranormal real? It absolutely is. Should it be taken lightly? Never. Never take it lightly. Always approach it with caution. Always be kind if somebody reaches out for help. Be understanding. And try to help them in your best ability. Try and be as informed as you can through your research, through your investigation, and help them find answers. So next time, stay safe, stay warm, be kind to one another. This world needs more kindness. See you next time. Bye-bye.